Hello and welcome to the Walker State of the City for 2021. Today we're coming to you from Lost Art Brewing here on Remembrance Road in the City Central Business District with my friends and co-owners Brad Lawrence and Mike Smith. As we did with last year's State of the City, we have chosen a location that is symbolic of the theme for the year. Our theme in 2021 is community, priorities, and confidence. When you think of the three trees in our city logo, we can imagine they symbolize community, priorities, and confidence heading into 2021. Let me put that in context to being here at Lost Art Brewing, as it is easy to connect the three. Community. Our community sense of community comes from seeing guests, sitting outside bundled up, enjoying a well-earned, socially distanced beer with their friends and family. But we are not here just because of the great beer, and it is great beer. But through the past 8 months, Lost Art Brewing has quickly become a gathering place with that sense of community that we need. Priorities. These are what we believe to be important to us as individuals as well as a city. And we'll talk more about those in detail in just a few moments. Confidence. Confidence is the decision to open up a business even after a number of pandemic-driven delays. I was here for the ribbon cutting of Lost Art Brewing on July 1 when they first opened their doors. This is significant because Brad and Mike opened their new brewery in the middle of a global pandemic. The confidence that they had in opening their doors with all of the uncertainty we had in our world is to be admired. So that Walker theme of community, priorities, and confidence is on full display, even right here at Lost Art Brewing. It was almost a year ago to the day we held our last Walker State of the City. Back then, our local economy was booming with construction. The city's financial position was as strong as it's ever been. Then, the global pandemic of COVID-19 hit. Schools and businesses were forced to close with public orders, and that convenience and excitement of going out for dinner or a cold beer was quickly replaced with making do with what we had in our freezers and cupboards at home. We were soon using terms like Zoom meetings, work from home, and the new norms. Even personally, I remember back to seeing my granddaughter Zoe for the first time in late December, and it was over FaceTime at 1:30 in the morning. How these pandemic times have changed our worlds with unique memories, some of which are still unfathomable. I believe that each of us has at least a story or two like that to share from this past year. Years from now, maybe little Zoe won't believe me when I tell her about the conditions in which she came into the world. Sadly, much of our world in 2020 was permeated with fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And who could blame us for thinking and feeling that way? Yet, 1 year later, with the global pandemic still having an impact on us each day, some things in Walker have not changed. Most importantly, our resilience and perseverance as a community, as neighbors, and as individuals, we are as strong as ever. Our neighborhoods and homes are still safe places to be. Our local economy is still booming with new construction throughout our city. And Walker's financial position remains on solid footing for both the short and long term. As I begin our State of the City with where we are at currently, my list of people to thank is endless. But there are a few that I need to recognize. I am fortunate to work alongside our city manager, Daryl Schmalzell, and Assistant City Manager Frank Wash every day. So much of the reputation we enjoy as a community begins with their solid leadership as well as that of our city commissioners. We have been through a lot together this year, and the city would not be what it is today without their efforts. I'm also blessed to work with some of the best department leaders you will find anywhere in local government. They have put the right people in the right places to serve our community at exceptional levels. I have shared with many people that serving as mayor of Walker is the greatest job on earth. The big reason why is how our city staff all work to tirelessly serve our residents and businesses. Also helping me put together our first and hopefully only virtual State of the City is our communications manager, Nicole DiDonato. Nicole joined the city this past fall in the middle of the pandemic and has already put her handprint on a number of things, and I appreciate her making this event happen. Lastly, a special shout out to the team at Guerrilla Productions for helping put this together. This is their second year in helping us deliver the State of the City. First, let's talk about public safety in our community. My biggest responsibility as your mayor is to ensure that we feel safe and secure in all places within our city, day and night. That commitment I have made is driven from each of you. I continue to listen to you, and this has consistently been what you have said is most important to us in Walker. I would like to break down both departments for you as there are notable highlights for each. Even more so this past year, though, our police officers and firefighters have had to put their own safety and well-being second to taking care of others in the most selfless of ways. First up is our police department. Over this past year, our world was challenged by some of the most trying times our department and city will ever face. That is exactly why our community has rallied around our officers. Never have I been prouder to be a leader representing each one of them. I feel compelled to state the obvious here. Our officers and supporting agencies have my full support. This was not one of the most enjoyable years to be in law enforcement, even here in West Michigan. Yet our police department continues to provide the peace of mind that is felt throughout our city. In 2020, our police department responded to approximately 10,500 calls for service. This was a 25% drop from 2019, due in part to many people not working and businesses being closed due to the public orders. We did see some significant increases for calls related to mental health, drug overdoses, as well as domestic assaults. Yet our officers continue to be proactive in their approach to help reduce these types of calls. Another area that I'm particularly proud of is the continued proactive approach to policing that our department takes. This year, new smart AEDs, or automated external defibrillators, were placed in all of our patrol cars compared to just a few last year. And what I believe to be the most strategic and proactive of actions in 2020 was the purchase and implementation of new car video systems and body cameras. The discussion on body cameras actually began in 2019, well before the civil unrest that affected much of our nation last summer. The previous in-car video systems were over 8 years old and required a lot of repairs. Finding replacement parts is also becoming an issue. So after a year of testing and evaluating multiple vendors, a selection was made. Today, you will find every Walker Patrol officer with these new body cameras, which work in sync with the new in-car video systems. We believe they serve the purpose of improving officer safety and communication, as well as providing an indisputable account of what takes place when our officers are called into service. I want to commend Chief Long and our police department for making this investment in our community. Next is our fire department. At the core of their mission is to educate on how to best mitigate the risk that exists in our homes and businesses. They accomplish this with lessons that begin with our preschoolers and kindergartners. They also attend countless neighborhood and community events. While there is great joy from our neighborhood kids when our firefighters hook up to the hydrants, these community events on a hot summer day, there's also a sense of security we all get in knowing how quickly and skillfully they can put a lot of water onto a structure fire if needed. That fire prevention education, as fun as our fire department has made it, continues to pay huge dividends back to our community. Last year in 2020 alone, our fire department responded to 609 calls for service. This was a 24% drop from 2019. So as you can see, their mission to educate our community in fire prevention is paying off. While these calls for service have significantly decreased, the city had to make significant upgrades in 2020 for our firefighters. Our biggest investment was replacing our 1987 aerial platform truck with a new model that we were able to get at a deeply discounted price. We also finished upgrading all of our SCBA tanks. These allow our firefighters to be inside a structure fire and breathe fresh oxygen. Having undergone training with our fire department with those old tanks myself, and now seeing the new ones in action, I know that we needed to make that investment for their safety. Rounding out our three biggest departments are our unsung heroes in Public Works. They don't just make the city run behind the scenes, they make it hum with quiet efficiency. This time of year, it doesn't matter in what direction you travel to and from our city, you know where the Walker city limits are. However, there is so much more they do that we should recognize. Despite many projects having to be paused this past year, they still managed to resurface more than 15 lane miles of road, and most importantly, they ensured that our city facilities, whether in or outdoors, had the best COVID protocols and safeguards in place. I want to leave you with an image of how I see our Department of Public Works. Earlier last year, I shared pictures on social media of what their big garage looks like inside at night when everyone goes home. The trucks, equipment, and even the floors are clean and have a shine to them. It seems like a small thing, yet that is what our residents don't always see. We invest our hardworking taxpayer dollars into that equipment, and we hope you know that they take great pride in cleaning them after every shift. That is just an example of the quiet professionalism in which they do their jobs. They are truly a special group, and that has not been more obvious than this past year. Another great sense of pride this past year is the business growth and economic development in our city. In 2020, Walker completed a multi-year process in updating our master plan, which is now called Walker 2040. One of the consistent factors we used in developing that Walker 2040 plan with the public was the measurement of Q factors. What those Q factors mean in its simplest definition is that quality of life should be and will be the driving factor behind the 2040 plan. While we await the results of the 2020 census, we know that Walker is still a multi-centric community. In previous decades and master plans, there have been attempts to locate and develop a single downtown or heart within the city. As Walker 2040 recognizes, our city's multi-centric nature is not negative and in fact should be celebrated and enhanced. Walker can and should have multiple hearts within our community. In recognition of our multi-centricity, this plan was developed using the concept of neighborhood clusters. These are groups of neighborhoods that have a common central place and or a common identity and culture. By developing the plan based on these hearts and cluster areas, detailed recommendations were possible that could not have happened citywide. We have strategically set this growth and development as one of our highest priorities, and it has paid off in a healthy local business economy until the pandemic hit. As with other cities, the shutdowns hit us hard and will likely have an effect on us for the next couple of years as more people work from home. However, our industrial and commercial growth continues to exceed our expectations. I will touch on the new businesses coming into our city and the income tax of the impact of those jobs shortly. Yet, the importance of new jobs in our city is more important than most others due to the income tax. This current fiscal year, which runs from July 1 through June 30, due to the impact of the pandemic, our projected construction permits and fees were slated to drop by 48%. I am pleased to share, because of the incredible work of city staff and our Planning Commission keeping projects on track, we are now cutting that potentially painful drop by more than half to about 20%. Given the discussions we are currently having with many new businesses that are considering calling Walker home in the coming months, I am optimistic that we will close that gap even more in the coming months. When it comes to the priorities of that commercial and industrial growth, we are simply not going to let the pandemic win. Looking at the significant growth taking place in Standale, we know that the counter effect of this growth is more traffic. I want to acknowledge that it is something that we're continually working on with MDOT and our other partners as we strive for improved traffic flow. What many might not see are the proactive strategies that we've already employed, like acquiring private drives to transition them into public roadways, and thus they become city-maintained roads. This approach of more innovative collaboration with our partners will provide the needed solutions as our commercial and retail growth continues. As we transition from commercial and industrial growth to residential, we know we have demand for new and affordable housing that has a significant gap with the actual market supply. It's no different than in any other city. We know there is a growing need for houses at a more affordable price point than currently exist within our city. While we review potential options, we continue to participate with the Grand Rapids and Kent County housing needs assessments and plans, and we will take advantage of the opportunities as we are able to. However, with a couple of large developments on the radar in our city, I do want to emphasize the work that we put into the Walker 2040 Master Plan updates. Just leveling large areas of green space to build as many houses as possible is not the strategy that we've recently adopted as part of that plan. I need you to know we are going to follow Walker 2040, and most importantly, we are going to listen to the voices of our residents. This past year also provided some significant highlights, even challenges with our engineering department. We only had 2 delays on projects as the engineering team found a way to keep projects on task and get the job done. They continued to provide us with meaningful innovation with our road and bridge projects, and I would like to highlight a couple of them. The first is the Walker Avenue Bridge, which in the last few years had crossed its critical last state of life. We were faced with astronomical costs in replacing an old bridge with a new bridge. That's what you usually do. Coming back to that meaningful innovation, our engineering team leveraged the city's longtime relationship with Bissell and their continued job growth for state funding support. And for the first time any of us could remember, instead of replacing a bridge, the decision was made to demolish the Walker Avenue Bridge and construct a new at-grade crossing. We were also able to add an additional lane in each direction to accommodate the growing traffic needs of the area. In addition to that meaningful innovation provided, the project itself saved taxpayers nearly $3 million if we had replaced that bridge. The Walker Avenue project was set to begin in the first days of the initial stay-at-home order, and our engineering team worked diligently with local and state officials to figure out how could they proceed without taking unnecessary risk for our staff and the construction teams. We were able to implement plans and protocols, allowing us to get started. And as with many of our projects, it was completed ahead of schedule and within budget. Our second big project was building the final link of Northridge Drive. This was 25 years in the making. Prior to achieving this connection, Northridge was the city's longest cul-de-sac, creating travel and public safety challenges. Seeing this project finally become reality was rewarding in a number of ways. The first one was solving a significant public safety problem in such a long dead-end street with one-way in and out. The second was the creation of transportation redundancy for employees and visitors to the industrial corridor. Lastly, we provided a real and measurable solution to the high business growth needs in that area. The organizations that are already currently building in that area include Amazon, Flexco, Michigan State Police, and the Kent County Road Commission, amongst others. Getting back to those new industrial jobs and how they impact us as a local income tax city. Currently, our income tax revenue accounts for approximately 66 to 67% of our general fund budget. This is obviously essential to providing our city services and is broken down with 65% of that coming from our residents and 35% coming from non-residents who work within our city borders. Because of the shift to work from home, Walker is projected to lose anywhere from $1.5 to $2.5 million this year and next from our non-resident returns. This amount reflects a roughly 8 to 14% reduction to our city general fund. That part of the city budget pays for our daily city operations like police, fire, roads, among other things. And for a city that already runs lean in its operational costs, this is going to hurt. However, we are optimistic that there will be state or even federal support to help us offset this, but we cannot budget for that. No matter what happens with that budget, though, I am making the commitment to you that we will continue to provide the essential city services at the levels you have come to expect. There will be no change there, and if anything, we're going to try and provide these services at even higher and more effective levels. With that in mind, I need to give a special shout out to our income tax and finance teams. They continue to navigate the turbulent financial waters of the pandemic. They've also redesigned the resident experience when you come into City Hall, if you do need to come in. They've improved the safety levels for residents and staff, as well as reducing the time you are in the building. Everyone benefits when these types of strategies are implemented. This is probably a good time to talk about the pandemic and its impact on our city. When I reflect back to those early days starting the pandemic, it seems surreal that a year later we are still dealing with this at the level we are. I should recognize that we did a phenomenal job as a community in following the preventative measures and recommendations that the Kent County Health Department recommended. Sadly, I personally know that we still lost a number of our neighbors and loved ones in Walker to COVID-19. We mourn their loss, and we pray alongside their families and their friends. Our first steps as a city, as the pandemic began, developed locally, was to close our Ice and Fitness Center to mitigate the risk for our customers, specifically our senior citizens. We took this action out of an abundance of caution before any state orders came down. That was probably the point when we definitely knew we were in for a long battle. At the same time, our city leadership team immediately started morning crisis management meetings. From this, I gained a new level of appreciation for our department leaders and their staffs. While there were a few days, though, the shutdown days, that I wondered, when is all this going to end? There was not one time I did not believe or have the confidence that we as a city team could handle anything that was thrown at us. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge Dr. Adam London and his team at the Kent County Health Department, as well as County Administrator Wayman Britt. We would not have been able to handle the pandemic then or now without their guidance and insight. They are truly special people that we cannot forget when this is all said and done. While we still have a way to go on our pandemic journey before we are back to most of our old normals, I am optimistic that the worst is behind us, and we will be stronger and more resilient than ever before. As I bring my comments to a close here, I'm reminded of a recent speech I gave during a virtual Fort Chaplain ceremony with the Walker American Legion Post 1111. In that messaging, I shared that no matter the differing beliefs, no matter the adversity, no matter the danger, we have one of history's greatest examples of selflessly putting others first and ourselves second. I went on to suggest in that speech that our present-day world would heal much faster if we just applied the story of the 4 chaplains to our own lives. I believe through 2020, with all of the challenges that we have faced, that Walker was a shining light on the civility, empathy, and caring we shared with one another. Thank you for making the time to watch our 2021 State of the City. This is shorter than last year, largely due to the effects the global pandemic had and continues to have on our community. If you remember only one thing from this State of the City, remember this: focus on our community, our priorities, and our confidence, and we will get through these challenges we face faster and stronger together. Our community is greater than the sum of its parts. Our priorities guide us in how we live, work, and grow together. And lastly, our confidence is unwavering in that together we can handle anything that the world might throw at us. Community, priorities, and confidence are at the top of our list for 2021. My deepest appreciation to each of you for watching. Thank you again to the generosity of our sponsors. May God bless each of you. God bless our great city of Walker, and God bless America. Thank you again.